Hello everyone. In the spirit of self-improvement, as was yesterday's introduction to my recommendation for literature, I think it's about time I started a book club. Not only does this motivate me, but it should motivate anyone who watches this channel to follow along and improve themselves. So, here's the challenge. I'm going to name a book in this video, and I'm going to give everyone 1 month to fully read through the book, myself included. I'm going to be taking notes, and at the end of the month, I'm going to do a short analysis or synopsis, and we can all have a discussion about the book and how it may apply to whatever the topic may be. So, today is March 1st, so that gives us until the end of March to read the following book. This month's book is going to be Leviathan, or The Matter, Form, and Power of a Commonwealth Ecclesiastical and Civil, by Thomas Hobbes of Malmesbury. This one in particular, printed for Andrew Cook at the Green Dragon in St. Paul's Churchyard, 1651. Now, the copy that I'm going to be reading was prepared for the McMaster University Archive of the History of Economic Thought by Rod Hay. Differences may vary between versions. This one, I believe, is around 437 plus pages, so I'll be going through that. If you'd like to pick up a copy, you can find it on Amazon or any local book place, although there are other ways to find a version of the book if you aren't so inclined, but I highly recommend going out and purchasing a physical copy of the book because I much prefer reading physical versions of books. However, I do understand that some people like to read on Kindle. This is also a great way to do it as well. While you're reading the book, if you've come across any ideas that you're new or that you don't understand, please write them down as you go along, and let's talk about it at the end of the month. Now, for those of you who have already read Leviathan, it may be a time for you to read it again and reopen these ideas that may have gone over your head or that you may have looked over. I read Leviathan many, many years ago during my English literature class, and I've forgotten most of what the most important things that Thomas Hobbes said, so I'm going to be reading it again. Now, for the most part, this miniature book club is going to be following my literature recommendations. So if you're unfamiliar with exactly what kind of books we're going to be covering in these videos, please go back and watch that one. But briefly, let's talk about Thomas Hobbes, the author of Leviathan. Thomas Hobbes, born 5th of April, 1588, died 4th of December, 1679, in some older texts, also known as Thomas Hobbes of Malmesbury, was an English philosopher who is considered one of the founders of modern political philosophy. Hobbes is best known for his 1651 book Leviathan, which established the social contract theory that has served as the foundation for most later Western political philosophy. In addition to political philosophy, Hobbes also contributed to a diverse array of other fields including history, jurisprudence, geometry, the physics of gases, theology, ethics, and general philosophy. Though on rational grounds a champion of absolutism for the sovereign, Hobbes also developed some of the fundamentals of European liberal thought: the right of the individual, the natural equality of all men, the artificial character of the political social order, which led to the later distinction between civil society and the state, the view that all legitimate political power must be representative and based on the consent of the people, and a liberal interpretation of law that leaves people free to do whatever the law does not explicitly forbid. His understanding of humans as being matter in motion, obeying the same physical laws as other matter in motion, remains influential, and his account of human nature as self-interested cooperation and of political communities as being based upon a social contract remains one of the major topics of political philosophy. So let's talk briefly about the context of Leviathan and the time period in which it was written. The English Civil War broke out in 1642, and when the Royalist cause began to decline in mid-1644, the king's supporters fled to Europe. Many came to Paris and were known to Hobbes. This revitalized Hobbes' political interest, and the Deceive was republished and more widely distributed. The company of exiled royalists led Hobbes to produce Leviathan, which set forth his theory of civil government in relation to the political crisis resulting from the war. Hobbes compared the state to a monster, or Leviathan, composed of men, created under pressure of human needs and dissolved by civil strife due to human passions. The work closed with a general review and conclusion in response to the war, which answered the question, does the subject have the right to change allegiance when a former sovereign's power to protect us is irrevocably lost? During the years of composing Leviathan, Hobbes remained in or near Paris. In 1647, a serious illness that nearly killed him disabled him for 6 months. On recovering, he resumed his literary task and completed it by 1650. Meanwhile, a translation of Deceive was being produced. Scholars disagree about whether it was Hobbes who translated it. The work had immediate impact. Soon, Hobbes was more lauded and decried than any other thinker of his time. The first effect of its publication was to sever his link with the exiled royalist who might well have killed him. The secularist spirit of his book greatly angered both Anglicans and the French Catholics. Hobbes appealed to the revolutionary English government for protection and fled back to London in winter 1651. After his submission to the Council of State, he was allowed to subside into private life in Fetter Lane. In essence, Leviathan is written where much of the book is occupied with demonstrating the necessity of a strong central authority to avoid the evil of discord and civil war. This is essentially going back to the idea that the state of man is chaos and that we need some sort of order, and that the state can be used as a tool to help mankind further its interests, and that as citizens of a state, our selfish interests help in cooperating and organizing this state. It's the foundation for the social contract theory, which will come up more and more importantly as we enter into the sort of Lockean democracy and sort of the Enlightenment thought that we'll get to later on. Well, that's about it for now. I hope everyone will pick up and read along with us, and then we'll talk about it at the end of the month. If you have a recommendation for next month's book, please leave a description down below. It doesn't have to be from my literary list, but we're going to start with Tier 1 and kind of go from there. Anyway, thanks for watching.